I used to wake up every morning to my husband's voice, sweet, insistent, and terrifying in its control. Sweetheart, it's for your own good. And every morning, he handed me a glass of his so-called energy shake. That day, I decided I had enough. And when he wasn't looking, I swapped our glasses. What happened next changed everything. If you've ever felt trapped, belittled, or underestimated, hit that subscribe button. Like this video and comment below if you've ever taken matters into your own hands. This is a story about control, deception, and a revenge so perfectly executed that justice felt sweet. Let's dive in. It started innocently enough, or so I thought. My husband, Greg, had always presented himself as a health nut. He worked out obsessively, read every fitness article imaginable, and most importantly believed he knew best about what was good for me. Every morning, like clockwork, I would shuffle into the kitchen, half asleep, to the aroma of his carefully crafted energy shakes, thick, green, and slightly bitter. They were his obsession, and they were my nightmare. Here, honey, he'd say, sliding a glass toward me with a smile that never reached his eyes. This is exactly what your body needs. Trust me, it's for your own good. The phrase had become a kind of mantra, repeated like a mantra I couldn't escape. But beneath his cheery exterior, there was control, subtle, insidious, and almost imperceptible at first. I'd been polite at first, sipping the shakes, pretending I enjoyed them, telling myself, it's just a phase, maybe he really cares. But care doesn't come with manipulation. Care doesn't come with hidden ridicule every time I refused a second glass. Care doesn't come when the person who swore to love you uses their so-called wisdom as a weapon to enforce obedience. I began noticing patterns. Every time I made a different choice, ate something he hadn't pre-approved, went to the gym my way, or skipped the shake, he'd offer a patronizing smile, a subtle remark, "You'll regret it later," or "Just wait, you'll see." It was small at first, almost laughable, but small things accumulate. The shakes were just the tip of the iceberg. They represented control, condescension, and a daily reminder that he didn't trust me to decide for myself. And that day, something in me snapped. I was sitting at the kitchen counter, half asleep, staring at the two glasses in front of me, his and mine, trying to muster the courage to sip without gagging. And that's when the idea hit me. Not just an idea, a plan, a small, cunning act of rebellion. If he thought he could control me with his shakes, then maybe it was time I let him taste his own medicine. The opportunity came faster than I expected. That morning, as usual, Greg had left the room to grab something from the pantry. He was humming a ridiculous tune, completely unaware that his little world was about to unravel. I glanced at the two glasses. One was mine. One was his. The one I had been drinking? Thick, green, and vile, but harmless. His, a duplicate, carefully crafted, exactly the same in appearance. Only this time, it was swapped. I filled his glass with my own drink, leaving mine untouched. Heart hammering, I watched him return. "Here you go," I said, sliding the glass across the counter with a smile that felt like the first taste of freedom I'd had in months. He picked it up without a glance, took a generous sip, and that's when the game began. I leaned back, pretending to scroll on my phone, feeling the pulse of satisfaction creep up my spine. Greg's expression changed almost immediately. It wasn't violent or dramatic, just subtle, a twitch of surprise, a tiny wince. "Ah, this tastes different," he said, forcing a laugh, trying to mask his confusion. I smiled sweetly, my heart racing. "Really? Maybe it's just a batch," I said, shrugging, trying to sound casual, innocent. He frowned, swirling the glass, his brows knitting together in that familiar way I'd come to despise. The self-assured Greg, the man who told me every day what was best for me, suddenly uncertain. "Oh, maybe I made a mistake," he murmured. "Could be the blender settings." And then came the part I had anticipated. The internal panic. I could see it flicker across his face, the realization that control had slipped from his grasp. The smugness, the superiority, the self-proclaimed wisdom gone, replaced by doubt, irritation, and confusion. It was glorious. I sat there, letting the suspense build. Every second stretched into an eternity of psychological satisfaction. I wanted him to squirm, to question himself, to feel the tiniest fraction of the helplessness I had felt every morning. He took another sip, slower this time, trying to analyze the flavor. I couldn't help but admire his meticulousness. He was trying so hard to regain control, and in doing so, he only dug himself deeper into the humiliation of being outsmarted by someone he underestimated. Me. What did you put in this? He asked finally, a trace of panic creeping into his voice. Nothing special, I said, my voice as calm as a still lake, hiding the storm underneath. Just the same as usual. Maybe your taste buds are off today. I watched him try to drink more, desperate for normalcy, but it wasn't the same. The psychological shift had already happened. His confidence, his dominance, all evaporated in that single moment. And it was mine not through aggression, not through shouting, but through wit, precision, and quiet cunning. He stormed out to the living room, muttering under his breath, leaving me to sip my shake safe, normal, and utterly victorious. Over the next few days, the power dynamics subtly shifted. He was no longer the all-knowing authority in the kitchen. Every time he reached for a glass, there was that flicker of doubt, the hesitation, the tiny seed of uncertainty I had planted. And the best part? He never realized exactly what I had done. He never knew the swap, never understood the psychology behind it. All he knew was that something had changed, and that I had tasted just a hint of liberation. It wasn't a public spectacle. There were no confrontations, no arguments. The revenge was quiet, precise, and perfectly satisfying. And in the quiet aftermath, I realized something deeper. It wasn't just about the shakes or even about him. It was about reclaiming myself, about proving, silently and undeniably, that I was capable, clever, and in control of my own life. That sometimes, the sweetest victories are the ones that happen without anyone realizing it, but that leave you feeling completely free. In the days that followed, I noticed a subtle shift. He became less commanding, less sure of himself. I could see him second-guessing, not only the shakes but other, small aspects of our routine, the thermostat, the grocery list, the way I arranged the living room. It was like watching a man unravel quietly, thread by thread, without anyone else noticing. And I, for the first time in months, felt a lightness that had been missing, a sense of power not over him, not cruelly, but over my own life, my choices, my autonomy. The revenge had worked not because it embarrassed him publicly, but because it forced him to reckon internally with the very control he had tried to wield over me. And I didn't have to lift a finger beyond that one small clever swap. It was the perfect balance of justice and subtlety, the ultimate poetic victory. Sometimes the most satisfying revenge isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet, smart, and personal. It's about reclaiming your power and reminding the world, most importantly, yourself, that you're in control of your life. And in that silent triumph, you find freedom. If you've ever been underestimated, belittled, or trapped by someone else's control, hit that like button. Share your story of quiet victory in the comments below. Subscribe for more tales where justice isn't just served, it's crafted with precision. And remember, sometimes the sweetest revenge is the one that goes unnoticed until it's too late.